Welcome, everyone, to a bonus episode of the Cops and Writers podcast, Author Spotlight, with best-selling author and publicist Deborah Levison. Her first book, The Crate, won 7 literary awards, and Lee Child, #1 New York Times best-selling author of the Jack Reacher series, said, "The Crate is an impressive and important piece of work." Since then, she wrote A Nest of Snakes and recently released A Novel Crime that has been described as uproariously funny, exquisitely unputdownable, and ingeniously plotted. The perfect delicious escape. Please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with one of my favorite authors, Debbie Levison. Debbie Levison, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again. Third
Yeah,
time, I think, right?
this is round 3, I believe. Yes, I could not be
Yeah.
happier. This is awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
for those
And
who,
thank you again. In case you didn't see it in the acknowledgments of my new book, thank you again for all your law enforcement help with that
oh,
story.
anytime for my friends. And Debbie, you're my friend. So,
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah,
thank
I
you.
bought the audio version, and I gotta say, your narrator knocked it out of the park. I think
Right?
she did a really good job. Did you have a lot of input in that as far as narrators?
I mean, I had some. So the
Okay.
publisher provided 3 different audition
Mm,
pieces. And she just starred. She shone right from the beginning,
okay.
and everybody agreed. And she's very well known in the audio world, Tanya Eby.
Okay.
And we just thought she did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I was very impressed with her. Yeah, I love audiobooks. That's how I consume most of my books is through audio because it's just so darn convenient. I'm driving to the grocery store, I'm working out, I'm walking the dog, whatever. It's like, and I can multitask. So I absolutely love it.
Yeah, me too.
So good for you. I love it. All right. So tell you what, tell us about yourself.
So, I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and had a pretty, quiet childhood. I spent my summers in the woods north of Toronto. And so I did a lot of reading, a lot of sketching, kind of contemplating life as I floated along in my little rowboat on the lake. And what else? And my after school hours were spent practicing piano. I was supposed to be a classical pianist. That's the path my parents wanted for me. And so that's what I did all the way through the end of high school. And then I just kind of dropped it.
Where did you go to college?
University of Toronto.
Oh, okay. Now, how would you describe your childhood?
Um, a little bit lonely, I think. I spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time with books.
Okay.
So the characters in books were my friends, and I did a lot of writing just for fun when I was a kid. Which looking back should have been like a big flag, like a big waving flag, be a writer, but it never really occurred to me. So it was supposed to be, be a classical pianist or be a lawyer. Those were
Okay.
kind of the options.
Mm. But I think, being a classical pianist, that takes so much creativity. You have that creativity gene. So you're a good writer. So you're, a piano player too. I think those two things, I'm not surprised by that. Let's just say that.
Well, for me, writing is very musical. Like I have to hear sort of the cadence of the
Mm.
words and the rhythm of the sentences as I'm writing, and I have to see how they look on the page like a piece of music almost.
Oh, okay.
So I think there is a link.
I started college as a music major. And I tell you what, I had to take class piano. That was a part of it. And just the right hand is treble clef, the left hand is bass clef, correct? If I remember correctly. And all my life, I played treble clef instruments. So that was a breeze.
Like
That was
like
no
what?
saxophone was my main. I played alto and baritone sax.
Nice.
And I did an independent studies when I was in high school, where I went down to the elementary school and partnered up with the band director down there, and I had to give lessons to the kids. So I had to learn all the instruments. So I had to learn trumpet, trombone, all these clarinets, flutes. And I was in percussion when I was younger, so that wasn't too much of a stretch for me. But learning the bass clef stuff, for whatever reason, my brain just would not accept it. I'm like, damn it, this whole left hand thing in bass clef,
That's very funny.
I admire anyone who can play the piano well.
Um,
Do you still
well, I
play?
was strings in school.
Oh, okay.
All through school, I was always viola, sometimes violin.
Mm. See, now, do you still play piano?
I am so rusty right now. Like, I don't even know if I could bang out a Beatles tune at this point.
Well, you see like those like TikToks and whatever is like, oh, here's a piano at the open market or whatever. I think I'll just start playing. So, would you ever sit down and just start jamming?
I've tried. I'm really, I have a standard and I'm so far from it at this
Okay,
point. I would really have to sit down and practice for hours, even just to get my fingers moving again. Like they
sure.
don't have that nimble musculature that they had before. So,
Oh, did any of your kids go into music or
no,
play?
no. My
Really?
daughter took piano for a few years, but
Okay, that's
yeah.
where it ended. All right. Now, when you were a kid, or even like later on, what did you want to do when you grew up? What was your aspiration?
So, so I Never Promised You a Rose Garden, and I read Sybil so many times that I think, no, I really think it kind of drove me towards wanting to be a psychologist. So I got my
Ah,
major in psychology,
ah,
but then when I graduated, I stepped right into journalism and
ah,
public relations, which was all creative writing
right.
and ghostwriting under someone else's name. So, and that was the career that I just continued till this day. So, by now I've been published in like so many countless local, national, international media outlets, but it's all under someone else's name.
Oh,
So I always wanted to write a book.
okay, okay. That's interesting that you mentioned Sybil. I remember that movie when it came out. I think it was Sally Field, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That played, and I was like, holy cow, I had no idea people could be that screwed up. I mean, that
right.
was a powerful movie.
You have to read the book. The book was so much better than the movie.
Wow. Was that based on a true story? I can't
I
remember.
think so.
Oh, how do you live like that? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Craziness.
Yeah.
So let's fast forward to the first book that has your name on it as the author. Is The Crate your first book? I think it is, isn't it?
Oh, this.
There we go. Oh, look, there just
Yeah,
happens to be a copy of it.
it just
Yay!
happens to be beside me. Yeah, and there's my name. Yeah, it's my first book. It's actually not the first book I wrote, but it's the
Sure.
first book that was published.
Okay.
So as you know, because we talked about it before, but as you know, it's the story of a murder that involved my family. And there was this murder, there was a discovery in a wooden crate, and an investigation and a trial. And when the trial concluded, everybody kind of looked at me and said, "So you're going to write the book?" And I'm like, "Okay, I guess I am." I had never thought of reading a true crime book, let alone writing one.
Yeah.
It was just not even on my radar. But then when this whole thing happened to my family, it was like the opportunity to write the book, the
Well, I
book.
tell you what, I read the entire book and I found it moving. I found it emotional. And, you can't fake it. You can't fake that at all. It was just, I thought it was astounding. I can't recommend this book enough. And I'm not just saying that because you're on my show, but boy, that was from the heart, and it just, that was a great book. And I cannot recommend it enough. And then I'm looking at the reviews and Lee Child reviewed it. How did that happen? And did you know it was going to happen?
That was crazy. No, I didn't know it was going to happen. So the book had just come out, and I was at my first Thriller Fest
Mm,
conference in New York City. And I remember just stepping off a panel when I felt a tap on my shoulder and I turned around and I had to look up. I had to look way up. So I'm pretty tall for a woman, but Lee Child is very tall. So I'm looking up and he's holding a copy of my book, which had just come out. It had just released.
Wow.
And he said, I read a few chapters last night and I'm really liking it. My jaw just dropped.
Sure.
I was in shock.
Wow.
And he ended up giving it a beautiful blurb,
Yeah, he
which
sure
which
did.
was on the front cover.
I know I'd put it on the front cover if Lee Child was doing that for me. Heck yeah. It's both educational, it's also educational. As far as I don't think Jewish history is taught enough, especially, World War II era, obviously, and beyond. And I believe that book is extremely relevant today because of just such an anti-Semitic environment. Some of it's blatant, and a lot of it is just innuendo and just subtleties. And it makes me want to vomit. I don't know what world we're living in right now, but I don't recognize it, and
Either.
it's horrible.
Yeah. So we should probably tell listeners that the reason you're bringing this up is because when I was writing the story of this murder, sort of in the middle of writing, I realized that for readers to understand the impact that the murder would have on my family, I had to tell my family history, which
Yep.
was in the Holocaust. So the story, the narrative sort of intertwines the Holocaust in the past and this murder in the present. So it is, it is my family history, and it is a continuation of anti-Semitism throughout history, sort of culminating with the Holocaust. But you're right, like what we're seeing now is just this parallel universe where history is not being taught in school. Just, history doesn't count, facts don't count, only feelings count
Correct.
now. And and we have this whole inversion where victims are being called aggressors and aggressors are
Yes.
being called victims. Jews are being called Nazis.
I,
And I mean, this is like classic Holocaust inversion. Detention centers are being called concentration camps. You know, Goebbels was actually the mastermind of this. He was the one that said, accuse your enemies of what you yourself are guilty of.
oh,
And it's
okay.
just completely inverting reality, and it's propaganda. It's just pure propaganda, and people are buying into it like crazy.
Yeah, we were talking before, I hit record, and you have, Hollywood elites and, rock stars and whoever else that have very little education. They have a skill set. They can play an instrument really well. They can sing really well. They can act very well. That does not make them experts in geopolitical anything, but they have an audience. They have a captured audience, and they, like you said before, they want to be relevant. They want to be seen. So they'll just regurgitate whatever their, little bubble has them say. And it's like, oh, they're so, how smart of them to say, no, not at all. It's a bunch of garbly-goop. But
It
people
is. It's
just,
all virtue signaling.
yeah, and
All
people
these
don't,
people
mm,
that don't know anything about history, they don't know anything about geopolitics. They're all just parroting everything they see on TikTok as if that's like
yes.
a resource.
Oh, all right. That's enough of that. We could do a podcast all
I
on
could do this
that.
all day.
Yeah, we could. But again, the crate, you interwove those stories very, very well. It was very well written, and it keeps you going, and it's very relevant for today. So I highly, highly, highly recommend that book. So the next book was A Nest of Snakes. This was fiction, but it was based on real events, correct?
Yes. Oh, and here it is.
Outstanding. So why write that book?
Yeah. So A Nest of Snakes is it is fiction, and it's inspired by these lawsuits that I worked on a few years ago where these middle-aged men alleged that they'd been abused in these very elite New England private schools, boarding
Mm,
schools. And it was my job to read through the complaints and publicize the lawsuits, to get more plaintiffs to come forward. And I was just blown away by what happened to these vulnerable young boys, and I decided to write a book about it. But it was fictionalized and it was actually toned down a lot so that readers could find it a little more palatable. Like the real
okay.
stuff was just so graphic and so
Ugh.
horrible, so I toned it down.
Oh, how difficult was it to transition from nonfiction over to fiction?
So much easier to write fiction, I think.
Okay.
So first of all, with nonfiction, because it was a memoir, because I used,
Sure.
my actual family's names and information, I didn't realize at the time that it would feel um, a little bit unsafe later,
Mm.
a little bit violating. Like strangers will come up to me and ask something about my kids, and I'm like,
Oh, okay.
how do you know about my kids? And
Right.
I'm like, oh, I read your book.
Oh,
So there's that sort of vulnerability of telling the truth to the whole world. But also the differences with fiction, I can control the narrative. I control the chaos.
right.
Like I control what happens to my characters and what's going on in the world. Whereas, with the crate, I had no control. It was just me reporting the events the way they happened. And, how much I wish I could have changed what happened to my father in three concentration camps. I wish
Oh,
I could have changed everything that I was telling about the Holocaust, but I couldn't. That was history and that was fact. So I told it as it was. Whereas with fiction, I can do whatever I want. And it's comforting, I can control the feelings.
wow. Now we have a new book out, a novel crime, which I got the audio version, which we were talking before. Your narrator knocked it out of the park. I thought it was really good. And all of you authors out there that are watching, listening, you know how stressful a book launch can be. This, oh man, all the little things you're trying to put together. There's 100 little things going on. And here's our Debbie doing her book launch, and things didn't go exactly as planned. Why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, this is gonna be one for the books. So here is a novel crime which just released last Tuesday. So tomorrow it'll be a week as of this recording. And an author goes about marketing their book largely on social media. There are other ways too,
Right.
but social media is really key. So
It's a
here
big
I was
chunk.
posting and sharing and commenting, and there were all these bookstagrammers who were talking about the book. And I asked all my author friends to post for launch day and all of that. So I wake up the morning of pub day and, expecting the day to be so fun and celebratory. And I wake up to an alert that my Facebook language had been changed to Thai. And then all these notifications, one after the other, saying that there was a login in London, England,
Ugh.
and suddenly I can't access my Facebook or Instagram accounts. And then I get messages from Meta saying that I had violated the community standards
Oh.
and they were deleting my accounts as a
Mm.
result. And so now, I spent the whole week trying to figure out the workaround and I can't get back in.
That's I once that happens, I mean, that strikes fear in every author's heart or a creative, and yeah, there's no simple solution. There's no 1-800 number where you could call and be on hold for 15 minutes and make it all okay again. That's, yeah, two things jumped out at me when you were just explaining all that. One was it was super smart for you to email authors because you emailed me and it's like, hey, this is launch day. I would really appreciate it if you would, do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, That's what you have to do. Nobody is going to do it for you. You have to ask. It feels odd sometimes or whatever, but if you don't ask for it, it ain't going to happen. So that was
Yeah.
super smart. So, you know what? And I'm sure I wasn't the only one. I still put up all that on launch day for you.
Thank you.
I
I wish
mean,
I could have seen
yeah,
it. I wish I could
exactly.
have thanked you, as a comment under the post, but I
Right.
still can't.
But by doing that, obviously you didn't know your Facebook account was gonna, turn to dust. But by doing that, I'm sure I wasn't the only author that did that. And if you wouldn't have put that post out, it would have been worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I still have no idea what's going on out there right now. I know that people are emailing, like usually it would be a message on that social media platform, but now people are emailing and saying, I'm trying to tag you. Where are you?
Right.
Everything okay? Where are you?
Well, that is a
So,
stark reminder that's like in our face that social media is one part of the marketing cog. I mean, we do rely on it. We all do. But it could go away tomorrow. I mean, it could go MySpace. It could go, I mean, it's you don't own it. Somebody else owns it. And the only thing that you do own really is your books and your email list. If you can build that email list up, that's huge, I think.
it's true. It's true.
I
And
mean,
looking back, I wish I had concentrated on that a lot more.
yeah, so but you have time on your side. I mean, your next book will come out. This book, I'm sure, will do well. And yeah, but that is just scary stuff. But let's go on to the book, A Novel Crime. Tell us about the
Okay.
storyline without giving away spoilers, because there are
Yeah.
spoilers.
So it's the story of Marcy Jo Codburn, who is a struggling romance writer who is desperate for a bestseller, and she wants to win the admiration of her very judgmental daughter, Beatrice. And she has this chance encounter with this glamorous celebrity author named Francesca, and that encounter sort of sends her down this insane rabbit hole of mayhem. And so her behavior goes from questionable to um, a little unethical to downright illegal.
Oh yeah.
And she was just such a fun character to write. Like, I just had so much fun watching her go off the rails.
Now, are you the person who has all the details done before you start writing? Do you have a big plot? You have this outline and you just follow it, or you just fly by the seat of your pants?
Yeah, well, I should have brought my board down to show you. So I start with these really good intentions of plotting out my books. And I buy like all these multicolored post-its and a
Yep.
big board, and then I start writing all my information and plotting everything out. And then I start writing, and before I know it, the story just kind of takes off in a completely different direction, or the characters do, they have a mind of their own and they start doing stuff that I didn't count on. So I think of myself as a failed plotter. Um,
See, like for me, I'm the opposite. What I do is I start out, if I'm writing fiction, I know the beginning, the middle, and the end. Not saying that's exactly how it's going to happen, but if I get stuck, I start plotting like crazy. If I write myself into a corner, that's how my brain works, where it's like, okay, if I plot this out, then okay, I'm okay. But I have to put it on paper. There's a piece of software called Plotter. So
oh, really?
oh yeah, it's awesome. And I'll just put it in Plotter, and I was like, okay, now this makes sense. And then I'll go off the rails
Really?
like a couple days later. Then I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll kind of keep that, but now I want to do this. Yeah, so yeah,
Hmm.
okay, very cool. Now, you were talking about, you're a musician and there's rhythm to your, books, and totally, totally see that. I love the way you write. I love the flow, and there is a rhythm to it, and I don't think you can teach that. What's the craziest thing you saw when you were a cop? My first week on the job, a guy running at me with a butcher knife. He just killed his brother over the last hot dog. That's chapter 1. There are 33 more. Police Stories, The Rookie Years just launched. Available now on Amazon. Search Police Stories Patrick O'Donnell or click the link in the show notes. Back to the show.
Well, my response to that is I can't do math.
You and me both.
Like, I still to this, I think I had one the other night. I still have nightmares about not going to math class and just being completely overwhelmed by not understanding what's going on.
Well, I
Like,
love
that's how
college.
I still feel to this day. So everybody has their strong suit,
Right, right.
and
You know,
mine will never be math.
I love college algebra so much. I took it twice. That's that was me. Like, oh God, this is horrific. So, how long did it take you to write this book?
So my writing time is definitely decreasing. So I think my first book took about 3 years.
Holy
A
cow!
Nest of Snakes took a year and a half, and then this one actually took about 6 months from point A to 90% finished.
Mm,
So in 6 months, I was 90% finished, and then that last 10% was really, really hard just because I don't know, world events kind of paralyzed me for a few months,
sure,
and then I
sure.
couldn't write at all.
Well,
So it was
I'm
a
not
while
gonna
before I finished.
I'm not gonna give anything away, but like you said before, there's a lot of plot twists here, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and you have to kind of like put it all together in the end, right? And that's not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. No, well, I knew the end. So I'm like
Okay.
you. I knew the beginning and I knew the end, but it's, that arc of getting from beginning to end that always throws me in different directions.
Yep. Wow. So, were you thinking of real people when you were crafting your main characters?
Well, so for Marcy, I think she has a lot of relatable characteristics. I
Okay.
think, I mean, as authors, I think we have our moments where we're envious or jealous of
Oh,
other people's
absolutely.
success,
Yep.
and we're feeling maybe a little entitled, like I need, I deserve to be published. I deserve this kind of success. And she's also a little deluded, and like I know I can think that way sometimes. She thinks she's this great writer just because she was on the yearbook staff in high school or whatever. So I think she's got characteristics that we all can relate to, but as a whole, she was just on a next level of crazy, which I loved.
Yeah. Isn't that fun when you're writing a
So
character
much
and you're just
fun.
like, and you could just have them go bananas. You could have them do stuff that maybe you thought of, but it's like, well, I don't want to go to jail or it's illegal or immoral or whatever. But man, you could have your character do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Right, right.
So if your book,
That's the fun part. That's pulling the strings of the puppets that we create.
exactly. So if your book, A Novel Crime, makes it to the small or big screen, who would you want to play the main character or characters?
Um, there's the big question. So we're
Yes.
putting it out in the movie verse.
Yes.
Good juju. So I think for Marcy, I had a couple of ideas. I can see Elizabeth Banks
Okay.
playing her, or Kristen Bell,
Oh, okay.
because I think they both played quirky kinds of characters in the
Yeah.
past. And then, so there are actually four main female roles.
Right.
Um, for Marcy's daughter Beatrice, I just watched The Last Thing He Told Me. I think that's what it
Mm,
was called. And the young girl in it, Nguri Rice, I can see her playing Beatrice.
okay.
And then for Francesca, who's the very beautiful celebrity author, I can see either Rose Byrne.
Mm,
I think she would be perfect, actually. Rose Byrne could do a good Francesca. And then there's Francesca's daughter, Aspen. And so for her, have you ever seen Ginny and Georgia
No.
on Netflix? Have you heard of it?
Mm-mm.
So there's a young actress in her early 20s. Her name is Sarah Waisblass, and I need her to play Aspen.
Okay.
She is so talented. She's the perfect, like, physical embodiment of Aspen. She's beautiful. And as it happens, I'm really, really good friends with her parents who live in Toronto.
Well, look at that.
So yeah, I'm putting it out there. Maybe I'll send her a copy of the book to produce, star in, whatever.
There you go. I
It'd
think
be
it should work.
perfect.
And I should have prefaced it with living or dead because sometimes it's hard,
Yeah.
there's iconic, actors and actresses.
Oh. Oh, that changes things.
It does. It does. So just saying. Maybe
Yeah.
Elizabeth Taylor is, Marcy. I
Ooh,
don't know. Just a thought.
maybe.
Just a thought. All right. Was this book more difficult to write compared to your other books?
No,
Okay.
no. I mean, I would say it was the same level of difficulty for craft because you still, regardless of it being funny or lighthearted, whatever, you still want the writing to be good and the structure to be good. But emotionally, it was much easier to write because it's just, it's a fun read and it's supposed to be just a fun satirical crime caper,
Right.
with dark humor. That was the intention of it. I wanted to write something not serious and not heavy like my first two books.
Yeah. How refreshing for you, hey?
It was. It
Yeah.
really was. But
Good
you
for you.
still want to make it a good book.
Right. And like I said before, there are twists and turns and all kinds of stuff going on, and that takes real skill to put it all together and do it in a way that makes sense for the reader. That's not easy. That's hard.
Right.
So good on you. So, how did you keep track of all these characters and what was going on? As I was listening to it, I'm just like, as an author, and I'm sure you're the same way. You're listening or watching, reading a book or watching a movie. It's like, man, that must have been tough to put together. Holy cow.
Well, I mean, I did have help from the editing process when I got to that stage. I do have one trick that I love using. So I write out the letters of the alphabet in a long list,
Okay.
and I plug in my characters' names for, first name, last name. So I don't use a lot of the same letter. That's
Ah,
one thing I do. Like I've
yeah.
read books where every single character starts with J, and it's annoying. So that's one thing. But then as I'm writing, my list of characters, I also just write bullet points about what they're up
Mm,
to at any given time. And it just kind of helps me keep track
yeah,
of
because
wherever it is.
there is a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, I was thinking to myself, you'd have to have something here. That would not be simple or easy, that's for sure. So why write a crime story?
Well, I guess since the first book came out, I started going to these conferences like Thriller Fest and BoucherCon and got involved with Sisters in Crime, which has a chapter here in Connecticut. So I made a lot of friends in the thriller author community. That's one thing. And I just kind of feel like I'm part of the community. That's part of it, but also it's my favorite genre to read.
Okay.
So it would make sense to write what you like to read. Although I also do like historical fiction, and I feel like I might have one in me in the
There you go.
future,
Oh boy.
maybe.
Excellent. So what parts of this book do you think readers will enjoy the most?
Um, I think it's just a ride, it's
Hmm.
just like this chaotic ride that has laugh out loud moments. I had one reader say that she had to use her inhaler because she was laughing so much.
That's
It
awesome. Oh my
was that
God.
was a big compliment. Yeah, no, I just hope readers have fun with it. It's not meant to have any, grand messaging. It's just a fun thriller.
Okay. Now, do you have a celebration ritual when you release a book or type the end?
No, I don't. Do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's yours?
Champagne. I drink bubbles.
Oh.
I love champagne.
Oh.
Depending how much money is in the account, definitely Bollinger, and we'll go from there.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think I'm doing it right then.
Well, I tell you what, it once you cross that finish line, that's a huge accomplishment. Not many people, well, not most people have a book in them, I think. Most people, I forget the numbers, but it was like close to 90% of people say, "Yeah, I've got a book in me. I should write a book about X, Y, or Z." And the percent that actually start writing said book compared to the percent that actually type the end and publish it into the wild is minute.
True.
So you are in a very small little group of folks who, and I think it takes guts to put your name on a book and throw it out there, that you're just exposing yourself. You're
Yeah.
exposing yourself to trolls. You're exposing yourself. I mean, good things happen, and
Hackers.
yeah, exactly. And bad things happen too. But you know what?
Yeah.
You should celebrate it. You did something remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had a great celebration party for my book launch for
Okay.
that night. And that
What'd you
was a
do?
lot of fun. I had a ton of people show up. I think there were like 70 people there, and the book sold out. So that, and there was champagne. There was champagne that
Okay.
night. So yes, well, Prosecco.
Yeah, I
But it was
wouldn't
a
be,
lot of fun.
yeah, for 70 people, I would not be serving Bollinger, that's for sure. I don't have that kind of bank account, but it would be yeah, it would be the $10 stuff, that's for sure. But
Right.
did you have it
And
like at a book?
cupcakes.
Did you have it at a bookstore?
Yeah,
Did you have
yeah.
the, okay, this is what I've been seeing lately. Did you have the cake in the shape of a book with your cover on it?
I didn't. Oh, shoot. I should have brought it down. I don't have it here with me. I did not have a cake. I did have cupcakes
Okay,
to match the book cover, which
nice.
makes sense because, cupcakes are mentioned several times in the book.
There you go.
And I didn't have a cake, but I do now own a jean jacket with the
Ooh.
book cover painted on the back.
Oh, wow, where'd you get
And
that?
it
That's
is
cool.
flawless. It's like the exact replica of my book cover. And
Wow.
my daughter painted it for me for a surprise.
Oh, that's
She
awesome.
painted it. I should have been wearing it. She painted it freehand, like didn't even sketch it out first. She just started painting.
More creative
And
talent in the family. There you go.
it's incredible, yeah. So
Wow, that's amazing. That
now I
good.
have to wear my jean jacket everywhere.
Yeah. I know it can get cold in Connecticut, so or it'll be 90 degrees and there's Debbie out there in her jeans. Little warm, aren't you? No, I'm fine. I'm fine. That's so cool. I love that. That's
Yeah.
great. So let's switch gears a little bit here. What's your take? Like the big thing in author world right now is the Shy Girl scandal, AI. The accusation of Mia Ballard using AI to write 78% of her book. And I guess what happened, she published it, she self-published first, and it did really well. Hachette took her on as her publisher, and things were steaming right along, and things were great. And somebody put it in an AI detector. Now, the accuracy of said AI detector, I question. And they pulled her books, and pretty much her career's over, just like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit, I'm not going to give stuff away from your book, but there are a little bit of parallel kind of stuff going on here. What do you think about that scandal?
So, well, I don't want to say anybody deserved to have their career end, but on the other hand, I just kind of object to the use of AI because there are, us authors who are doing the actual work and not taking shortcuts. Um, she did say that she didn't write with AI, but only used AI for editing. So that's what she said. We'll just leave it at that. But then again, AI is also programmed by us. Like we're
Right?
the ones that have
That's where they
taught
learn it
AI to
from.
write a
Yes.
book.
Yes.
So I would kind of applaud Hachette for canceling the book here in the States. I think it was already released in the UK,
Yes, it
right?
was. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, look, you want to write a book, write it yourself. If you want AI to write it, put it on the front cover,
Yeah,
written by AI.
we're almost in the wild west right now of AI and publishing. You know, I did a little more homework on what happened to her, and her defense was that, she self-published the book. She gave it to an acquaintance who used AI to edit the book. They put it in ChatGPT and then gave it back to her. Well, I think some of the onus should be on Hachette. Before you publish it with your name on it, that's a reputable publishing house. Don't you think they would have, had their editors do a pass
Right.
before
There's
that?
that.
I mean, I don't understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
I see both sides of the argument, and there should be some transparency. Maybe this poor girl, she didn't write one bit of it as far as having AI write the book. Maybe it wasn't. Yeah, it could have been a glitch in this AI machine, this AI detector, which again, I'm very suspicious of, but her career's over. So, I mean, it's a cautionary tale.
Yeah. Well, we do have to have mechanisms to certify how much AI is in any kind of document, right? Or any kind of work or any kind of messaging. There has to be that mechanism. So, like even in colleges have to use some sort of a program
Yes.
to measure how much AI is in any given piece of work that a student hands in, right? So, and it's up to them to decide how much is acceptable. Is it going to be 10% AI is acceptable at this point? I mean, it's like using a
Yeah.
calculator for a math test.
I
Everybody was
remember.
all up
Yep.
in arms at the beginning,
Oh yeah.
and now it's standard procedure.
Yeah,
So AI is here to stay. They just have to decide how much is acceptable and then be able to prove how much was actually used.
yeah,
You know.
I think there will be a market for human slash AI books where it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna be on the cover. This was
It's got to be on
human,
the cover.
this is
Yeah.
human generated, or this was AI generated. And I was listening to a podcast. It was
This was human generated.
so was mine. Tim Ferriss, I'm a huge fan of Tim Ferriss's podcast, and they were talking about publishing and AI. And I forget who his guest was, but the guest was like, you know what, human, go out there and start living life. Do experiences. Do it. AI can't replicate that. The feeling of jumping out of an airplane, going skydiving or falling in love for the first time and getting your heart broken or whatever. AI can't duplicate the nuts and bolts of that. So, you know what? Go out and write a great book. I think that's the way to combat that.
Hmm.
Be good at what you do.
Yeah.
I don't think AI will ever get to that point.
Yeah, it makes me sad that my father, for instance, his entire lifelong career, once he arrived in Canada, until he retired at the age of 75, his career is now being taken over by AI. Like he's completely irrelevant.
What
He's
was that?
obsolete at this point. So he was a mathematician.
Okay, okay. You didn't
Clearly,
get the
it skipped a
gene. You didn't
generation.
get that gene, yeah.
But he was actually an electrical engineer.
Hmm.
He was in estimating. So he worked for a big electrical engineering firm, and his job was to estimate, create bids on any given job. And now that is all being taken over by AI.
Wow. Yeah, like I said, this is the wild west of AI. It's going to generate jobs and it's going to take away jobs. And like you said before, I mean, the cows are out of the barn. It's here to stay. So we have to learn how to use it to our advantage or get left in the dust. It's that
Right,
simple.
right.
That's the way I see it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there's any other authors that are going to get their heads on the chopping block and be publicly shamed and all this other garbly goop that's just no good at all. But yeah, and again, I think Hachette is not taking any onus on this. You think you'd be a little more careful. It's like, okay, here's this manuscript. Okay, we'll have our editors, give it a good go through.
Mhm.
So, hey, whatever. We'll see what happens. Stay tuned. All right, what's next for you?
So I started writing another book months and months ago, and it's a thriller, a little bit different this time.
Okay.
So it actually stems from my daughter marrying a boy whose father was in the pearl business.
Hmm.
And that to me was very interesting because I had once written an article, ghost written an article about pearl diving in Tahiti and how dangerous it is, and how, you have to have these skilled divers who go down and hold their breath for so long
Right.
to find like not farmed pearls, but
Yeah.
naturally occurring pearls, and how, this was like a job that was passed down from generation to generation. Anyway, the whole thing was fascinating to me. So I decided to write a thriller sort of around the pearl industry about
Mm.
this couple that finds this absolutely priceless pearl while on vacation in Tahiti. And before you know it, all of these bad actors are coming out of the
Oh
woodwork
boy.
and chasing them, trying to get their hands on this pearl, and the story takes off from there.
Outstanding. Love it. Love it. So let's land the plane here. Yeah, let's finish up. Where can
Okay.
people find out more about you and your books?
Well, my website is still up, thankfully, and
Yay!
that's something. DebbieLevison.com, DebbieLevison.com. And the books are all up on Amazon, bookstores, wherever. If they're not in a local bookstore or a library, please request it and they can get them in. So that would be wonderful. And hopefully, very soon, I'll be back on Facebook and Instagram at Deborah Levison Author.
All right. Well,
Hopefully soon.
hopefully soon. Yeah. Oh gosh. So the name of the book is A Novel Crime. Go out and get it.
Yeah.
Debbie, as always, it's great having you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Always great to talk to you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me and my special guest, best-selling author Deborah Levison, for this bonus episode of the Cops and Writers podcast, Author Spotlight, where I feature an author and their work. I will be back with a regular episode of the Cops and Writers podcast this Sunday. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Cops and Writers podcast. If you haven't done so yet, could you take a minute and rate and review the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? If you have already, thank you. As always, thank you for all of your support, and, of course, let's be careful out there.